In today's video, we are going to be talking about the minigames in Mario Party Jamboree. This video is part of a series of videos for the game, where in each video we talk about different subjects. Today is the minigames. If you want to go check out the first video, which was about the boards, that will be in the top right card or in the link in the description below. But with each video, we're going to be trying to go through things as fast as I can. So let's get everything started with the 4-player minigames. First, we have Lumber Tumble, which has you trying to stay on a few platforms. You're gonna have 2 sets of logs in front and behind you, and you gotta try to stay on and not get pushed off because the logs will vary their speeds, go forwards, and sometimes go backwards to kind of throw you off. Next, we have a minigame which is like Toads on Balls. My best guess is that the minigame is going to be called Big Top Quiz of the names that we've able to see. In this minigame, you're going to follow and pick the correct responses to the questions. Some will have to do with which Toad is hiding which character or which character is on the specific ball. Next, we have a minigame where you have to take a picture that is as close as you can get it to the center picture on your screen. They'll probably divvy up the points 5, 3, 1, and 0 per round. Up next, we have Scarousel, where you have to try to stay on the carousel and potentially not get knocked off or go too fast or too slow where you get hit with the electricity. Next, we have a minigame where you're collecting flags. You got to collect the most amount of them on a globe-like area, and then whoever does get the most will win the minigame. Up next, we have Sandwiched, where you have to avoid the falling sandwiches, and they will get faster and faster as time goes on. Up next, we have Hot Cross Blocks. In this minigame, you need to outsmart your opponents by trying to select blocks that your opponents will not select. But of course, if you want to try to make sure that your opponents do not get certain blocks, you can choose them to make them not be able to get them themselves. The next one is Light Wave Battle, where every ground pound that you do will send light waves to everybody else. So you gotta send your own while being able to avoid all of the others that everybody else is sending to you. Then we have Thwomp the Difference. In this minigame, my best guess is that you just have to pick the different thing and the different object that are behind each of the thwomps. Next, we have Cold Front, where you have to balance on the ice and try your best not to get blown off from the typhoons. As the time goes on, more and more typhoons will blow to make it more difficult. Next, we have Hot Hot Hop. In this minigame, you're trying to not get hit by the fire bar, which will continuously spin around the platform, or the Magmargs, which are going to randomly go from any direction and try to just get in your way. Next, we have Sled to the Edge. This is more or less Gimme a Break from Mario Party 7, but instead of it being an 8-player minigame, it's a 4-player minigame, and instead of it being on random types of terrain, this looks like it will always be on ice. Then we have the Ant Troopers hopping minigame, which I believe is Trampoline or Trampoline, where you gotta bounce on the Ant Troopers and just make sure that you don't get jumped on to where you're going to hit one of the horned ant troopers or just mistakenly jump on one of them yourself. Then we have a key minigame where it looks like it is locked out from Mario Party 3, but instead of it being where everybody is going up and rushing to get the keys to the doors, it looks like it'll be one player at a time, and you gotta find which key goes to what door, and my assumption it'll be 3 doors for the first round, 2 doors for the second round, and then 1 final door for the last round. Then we have 3 Throw from Mario Party 4. In this minigame, you have basketballs and you gotta shoot them into the hoops. My question with this minigame is it the same where if you're on the left or right, you have a much higher chance of winning than if you are in the middle? Next, we have Granite Getaway from Mario Party 6. Run away from the giant boulder, all Indiana Jones style, and make sure you don't get tripped up by rocks, and then try to also potentially not fall in any pits as you make your way all the way to the end. Next up, we have Treasure Divers from Mario Party 1. In this minigame, you're diving into the water and trying to bring the chest out into the ship. Big chests are worth 5 coins, medium chests are worth 3 coins, and small chests are worth 1 coin. It looks like there'll be a total of 26 coins total that you'll be able to collect in this minigame. Next, we have Platform Peril from Mario Party 1. However, this version is a coin collecting minigame. Instead of trying to make it all the way to the end to get 10 coins, it looks like you're going to have to go from platform to platform and just collect as many coins as possible. Next, we have Stamp Out from Mario Party 4. You're going to try to get your paint all over the paper as much as you can. Whoever has the highest percentage of paint on by the end of the time limit will win. Next, we have the 4-player potential motion minigames. And first, we have Tilt-A-Golf. In this minigame, you're tilting your Joy-Cons, and it looks like you might be able to press a button to bounce your golf balls, and you got to get them into the holes as fast as possible. Next, we have Hammer It Home, where it looks like you have to time your hammer hits to hit the nail all the way into the piece of wood, whereas if you don't time it right, you might miss and then have to do it 2 or 3 times. Next up, we have Night Lights, which looks to be in the similar vein to Crank to Rank from Mario Party 8, where it looks like you're going to have to rotate your Joy-Con in a clockwork fashion as fast as you can to light up the night with your color going all the way up to the castle. Up next, we have this organizing minigame where it looks like you have to tilt your Joy-Con to try to put the Cheep Cheeps and the bloopers where they need to go in their specific locations. Next up, we have some sort of minigame with amps where it looks like you're trying to avoid them and their electricity and try to make it all the way to the top. Probably like the first one to make it to the top will win. Next up, we have the Triathlon minigame. I don't know if we've seen the name of this minigame. If we do, then I'll pop it up on screen. But in this minigame, you're swimming while shaking your Joy-Con in a specific way. Then you're biking while you're shaking your Joy-Con in a specific way. And then you're leaping over hurdles while shaking to leap over each of the hurdles. First one across wins. And then the final motion minigame looks like some sort of mining minigame, where you're just shaking as fast as you can, trying to make it all the way through like the rocks or the mountain or the hill or whatever it is. And then first one out will win. Now, there are 3 minigames that we don't necessarily have footage of when it comes to Jamboree specifically. The first one is Domination from Mario Party 4. It's just a straight up button masher, mash A as fast as you can and as much as you can in 10 seconds. Next up, we have this ice skating coin minigame where you're going to be in ice skates and you just got to collect as many coins as you can. And the last 4-player minigame is this balancing minigame, which looks to be Treetop Treasure, where you're going to be balancing on 2 different platforms with everybody and trying to collect as many coins as you can. Next, we're going to be moving on to the 1v3s, starting off with Sunset Standoff. In this minigame, one person is in a giant bonsai bill, and they have 5 rounds to try to hit the 3 people and knock them off. Next up, we have Cookie Cutters, where one person is able to cut out all of the cookie shapes, while the 3 will have 1 each and have to work together to cut out as many of the cookie shapes as possible. Next up, we have a UFO minigame where the one person will drop different sizes of spiked platforms, and the 3 have to avoid and not get hit by the spikes. Next up, we have some sort of hide-and-seek minigame, where instead of how every other hide-and-seek minigame in Mario Party has worked, where the 3 have hidden, in here it's actually the 1, and then the 3 people will have 3 rounds probably to hit the person 3 times. Next up, we have a minigame where the one person hits an on-off switch to drop grolls on the 3, and just with how everything is looking, it looks like this one will probably favor the 3, but I've been wrong before. Next up, we have a bruiser minigame where the one person will control a giant mechanical bruiser and try to hit the 3 within the time limit. Next up, we have an archery target minigame where the 3 people will have targets above them with 10, 20, and 30 points. The one player will be shooting arrows from a set platform that will move at a set speed, and they will be trying to get at 100 points within the time limit. Next up, we have Cage Catch, where the one person will be swimming in a pool-like area, and then the 3 will be trying to catch them with one person controlling the horizontal movement of the cage, one person controlling the vertical movement of the cage, and then one person controlling when to actually drop the cage. Next up, we have a Plessy coin collecting minigame where the one player will be on Plessy, looking like they'll be able to move faster and be able to go in front of everybody else to be able to collect coins first, whereas the 3 will be on smaller rafts and trying to more or less collect the scraps and trying to also potentially not get knocked off by the 1 while they are using Plessy. Next up, we have Blame It on the Crane. This is a minigame from Mario Party 4. This minigame has the one player in a giant crane, and they have to use it to try to collect all the 3 people that are in giant balls, and then the 3 are trying to avoid being picked up by the crane while on a spinning platform. It looks like there was a difference in this version where the one player can actually kind of control the crane with their stick, whereas in Mario Party 4 you had to hold down the A button for it to move. Up next for Mario Party 6 we have Snowball, where each group of people are trying to throw snowballs at each other. The one person has to hit all the 3, and then the 3 people have to hit the 1, but the 1 will have some ukikis to try to block out some of the snowballs. And then the last 1v3 minigame looks like it is Bash and Cash from Mario Party 1, but reversed. In this version of the minigame, the 3 people have 21 coins among themselves, and then the 1 person has to go around hitting them with hammers, and then however many people they're able to hit within the time limit will be however many coins they have, and then however many coins that the 3 have at the end of the minigame still will be what they win. Now we're going to be moving on to the 2v2 minigames, starting off with a rope swinging minigame where I just compare it to Vine With Me from Mario Party 3, where you're going to have to go from ledge to ledge and try to grab onto each ledge, and then once you grab onto it, your partner will release theirs and then go and grab the next one, and you keep going and going all the way till the end. Up next we have Pick and Produce. We have to take the 3 types of fruits and then try to get them onto the specific conveyor belts to get them into their specific boxes. Some of them you have to go all the way from the left all the way to the right, and then vice versa. It's a quick one where you got to really be on your toes trying to get everything into where they need to go. Next we have Prime Cut, where you're trying to cut 3 different steaks as close as you can to 50-50. The team that does it most often, the closest, will win. Next up we have a pattern matching minigame where each player will have circles that they need to rotate in order to match the pattern that is in the middle by working together. Next up we have Tricky Turntable, where you'll have 10 seconds to try to mind game your opponent's team to try to get you as many coins as possible. You'll have 7 different rounds at 10 seconds apiece, with also the possibility of getting a bomb, and if you do get a bomb to hit you, you will lose a coin. Next up we have some sort of treasure lassoing minigame where you're trying to lasso in chests. There are 2 different sizes. You have small chests which you can grab by yourself, which will give you probably a coin, and then you have bigger chests which are looking like they may be 5 or 10 coins, but in order to get them, you both have to actually lasso them in together. The next minigame we have is Robo Arm Wrestle. This could go either way. I have seen an article that says you have to shake your Joy-Con as fast as you can to do it. I was in the understanding and hope that this was a button mashing minigame, but it is looking like this is potentially a Joy-Con specific minigame, so we'll have to see when we actually get the minigame in our own hands. Next up, we have Defuse or Lose from Mario Party 5. In this minigame, you're trying to get the defuses out as many times as you can, because as soon as the fuse hits the giant bomb that is at the end, he will explode, making you lose. Then we have Jump the Gun from Mario Party 6. In this minigame, one person is shooting bullet bills onto targets, and then the other teammate is trying to jump on the bullet bills to make it to the end as fast as possible. Now, for the 2v2s, we have 2 minigames that really do not have any type of footage. There is this card matching minigame where either you're trying to match the cards as fast as possible, or it could be something where you're trying to match what Womp is asking you to match as fast as possible, and then whoever gets the most points in that regard will win. Then we have some sort of car racing minigame. From the minigame names that we could see, my best guess is that this is called 2-Axis Taxi. In this minigame, my best guess is that you'll have one person controlling either the front of the car or the back of the car or the left side of the car or the right side of the car, and then you have to work together to get through some sort of like obstacle course and then make it to the end as fast as possible. We also have a minigame where you have to get your Dory all the way to the end of this course while going around the little obstacles and making it past the giant Cheep Cheep at the end. Up next, we have Duel Minigames. The first one we have is some sort of hand-slapping minigame where it's basically just mind games. When you ground pound, the hand will slap your opponent but if your opponent can manage to jump over the hand, it will slap you instead. Then we have some sort of bowling minigame. We have to roll a giant ball down a hill and try to hit as many of the pins as you can. The question that I have for this is it one frame or are there multiple frames of this? Next up, we have some sort of fuzzy race minigame where you have to try to get to the top of the thing as fast as you can while avoiding all of the fuzzies as possible. Then we have two minigames that really don't have as much footage or any footage, where we have the fishing minigame where I think we saw in like that Yoshi thing that they showed off on Twitter. My best guess is you have to either get the biggest fish or you have to get the most points from the fish. One of those two within a time limit, that's as best as I got. Then we have a minigame which looks like it could be similar to Mosh Pit Mayhem from Mario Party 8. Or if it's not, I could see it being something where you're gonna have like marbles rolling all over the place and you have to try to avoid them and make it through all the way to the end, and then first one there will win. Next up, we have the item mini games. This one we can go through just rather quickly. It looks like you have one where there's probably like a wheel in the middle. It'll spin, and then you just gotta hit A, and then whatever item you get, you get. Then you have a mini game where it looks like you just choose a line, and then whatever it goes to, you win the item. Then we have a mini game where it looks like you're just trying to match two cards. There will be 5 sets of 2 cards. Whichever one you flip over twice first will be the item that you get. Then it looks like there's some sort of like ball dropping minigame where you drop the ball and whatever like basket it goes into will be the item that you get. And then finally some sort of like ice shuffleboard minigame where you hit the thing as fast as you can or however specific strength. Whatever item it lands on will be the one that you get. Now we're going to be moving on to the Jamboree Friend mini games, and we're going to start with the ones that we actually know and kind of have footage of. First, starting off with what looks to be the Mario Medley mini game. This looks to be like 3 mini games coming back from Mario Party Superstars, where you have to do all 3 of the mini games, potentially starting with like Leaf Leap, then you go on to Bumper Balls, and then you go to Shy Guy Says. And then I guess whoever does the best in all of them will get Mario. Next up, we have a Luigi puzzle-esque minigame where you have 8 to 9 rooms of puzzles that you need to solve, with one of them that I will say that I like, looking something similar to Hotel Goomba. And then whoever gets through all the rooms first will get Luigi. We have Daisy's minigame, which looks like you're trying to collect as many amount of like Daisy tokens as possible. It looks like you have 4 rounds to go through and just collect all the Daisy tokens. Then we have Yoshi's, which looks like you're gonna hop onto a Yoshi and then try to get all the way to the end of the obstacle course as fast as you can. Next up, we have DK's Bongo-esque minigame where you're basically probably just playing Donkey Konga and trying to match the rhythm as best as you can. Then we have Bowser Jr.'s, which looks to be something like a decathlon, where you have to go through 10 different things, and then whoever has the most points at the end will get Bowser Jr. And the last one that we have footage of is Waluigi's Pinball, where it looks like you'll have 3 minutes to just get as many points in pinball as possible. The 3 mini games that we know of that we do not have footage of is Peach's, which looks like maybe you have to like take Peach's order and then bring it back to her, or something to do with food or donuts. Then we have Wario's, which looks like you're in some sort of like ruins, and maybe you have to either collect the things fastest to get them, or you actually have to like run through the ruins and then bring the stones back to the area, and then the first to get all 4 would win. And the last one that we see is Rosalina's snowboarding minigame, where in this one you're probably just going down a long slope of snow, and then whoever makes it to the bottom first would win Rosalina. Now there are 5 mystery mini games here. Now my best guess for these mini games is that they are potentially boss mini games, because we see a mini game where you're jumping on a bee, and it looks like in the format of like a boss fight from Mario Party 9 and Mario Party 10. So it looks like to me that there will be 5 mini games, 1 for each of the new boards, and then maybe it's something for like the end of each board that you play, or maybe it's something for like a story mode. Next, we're going to be moving on to the 8-player co-op mini games. The first one we have is like an apple juice making mini game where 3 people will go and collect apples, 2 will make the actual apple juice, and then 3 more will try to deliver the apple juice to a truck. Next up, we have some sort of like volleyball minigame where everybody's trying to volley all of the balls all the way to the end, and then you just gotta get as many as you can all the way to the end as possible. Next up, we have a ship or boat target shooting kind of minigame where you have to try to shoot as many of the targets as you can. If you get lines or if you get shapes, you get bonus points. And then of course, if you hit all of them, you'll probably get like the maximum amount of points per ship. Next up, we have like a fence defending minigame where you gotta sit there and get the bombs away from the fence as much as possible. This one is like Balloons Tower Defense, but with bombs. Next up, we have a minigame where one person is trying to, I guess, clean as many chain chomps as they can. And then the 7 other people are trying to make sure that you have enough stream in your water to actually be able to hit the chain chomps with the water. Next up, we have a minigame where you're just trying to hit a button to match the symbol that is underneath you. If everybody gets it perfectly, you'll get bonus points. Otherwise, it'll just take longer and longer, so just do it as fast as you can and as accurate as you can. Next up, we have an 8-player like slide puzzle kind of thing where you got to work together and pass the puzzle to your left and your right and try to make the puzzle as best as you can. Next, we have a minigame where you're just trying to beat Wiggler in a race. It looks like it is basically Desert Dash, but with 8 people. That'll be fun. Next up, we have a minigame where you gotta match the direction of the arrow that is pointing. If it points up, you gotta look up. If it points down, you gotta look down. Just try to match your direction with the direction of the arrow. And the last 8-player minigame is, it looks like you have to take 8 pieces that are scattered around and match a 9-piece puzzle. Work together and get the pieces in the areas that they need to go to. Next up, we have the Koopathlon Minigames. The first one that we have is hammering away at some Monty moles. Some would be normal, some would be gold. And then you'll have some bombs. Just make sure you don't hit the bombs. Next up, we have a minigame where you're trying to break as many blocks as you can. You'll have some paratroopers around. Those will give you some extra shells to hit around, including the red one, which looks like you really want to get that as fast as possible. Next up, we have a minigame where you're cooking bread. You got to make sure that it cooks all the way through but doesn't burn, and then pull it out for coins. Next up, you have the one where you're just trying to avoid Spike's rollers. You got to jump over them, avoid them, and collect as many coins as you can. The next one we have is you're just pushing some blocks and some plushes off of the platform. Different ones are worth different points. The next one is like F-Zero, or that one minigame or game from like Nintendo Land, and you just gotta get as many coins as you can and just go as fast as possible. Next up, we have a minigame that looks like it's 1-player peace out, but here you gotta take like the bomb and you gotta put all the blocks of coins around the bomb and make it blow up to get all the coins. The next minigame is a minigame where you gotta pick the room with the most characters present. If you pick the right room, you'll get coins. If not, then you'll just keep passing through and then you'll get nothing and you have to try again in the next room. And the last main Koopathlon minigame is a minigame where you're blasting out of cannons and you gotta time your cannon shots as perfectly as you can to get as many coins as you can. Next up, we have 5 Bowser Koopathlon minigames. The first one, you're jumping over fire to make sure that you're not getting hit. The next one is you're trying to stay on the platform and run away from Bowser. Just try to not get hit by anything that may be falling in the air or by running into one of the couple pits. The next one is a minigame where you're climbing up a pole. My guess is you got to avoid the things that are coming in from the side, and then also don't go slow enough to where you'll get hit by the lava rising from beneath you. And the last one that we have footage for is a minigame where you have a bunch of platforms. Every single one will be white, and then the ones that change color to like yellow, red, and whatnot, you want to stay off of those because those will drop out from underneath you, and it will get smaller over time. There is one that we do not have footage for, but my best guess, based on just looking at it and from talking to a couple people, is that there will be something in one of the chests, and then it'll rotate, mix up, and then you got to pick the correct chest. And then it'll probably go through a few rounds of that, and then whoever is left at the end will stay alive. And the final type of minigame to talk about today are the rhythm minigames. There is questions for this because, you know, we don't really get to see a lot of the footage for a lot of this just yet. Maybe we will by time that I release this or by time the big video comes out. But the ones that we do see footage for is the first one where you're cutting fruits, you're cutting vegetables, and the rhythm. You got one where you're flipping pancakes. You gotta flip them at the right times. And then one where you're cooking, I think, like chili or something along those lines with Waluigi. Now, the ones that we do not have footage for are the ones where it looks like, I don't know, maybe you're baking a cake. There's one where it looks like something along the lines like you maybe have popcorn. There's something that looks like you're making a sandwich. One that looks like you're maybe cooking and making a hamburger. Another one which looks like something with a hot dog or maybe like a foot long from Subway. There's one that looks like you're skewering food, like that one mini game in Super Mario Party. There's also another one which looks like you're maybe like plucking carrots, like that one mini game from Mario Party 9, but now maybe it's like a rhythm mini game instead of like a as fast as you can type of mini game. And then there's one mini game that I feel like I can actually kind of see and understand, which looks like you're taking a golf club and hitting the fruit into a giant gelato cup. Now, throughout this video, I have been talking about and trying to guess what mini games are normal mini games and what mini games might be potentially motion mini games. We now have gotten to see which mini games are specifically motion-based mini games. So, for the 4-player mini games, it is the 7 that I 100% knew and thought were going to be the motion-based mini games. For the 1v3 mini games, we have the archery mini game and the riding on the Plessy mini game. For the 2v2s, we have the mini games where you have to go through an obstacle course on a Dory or Plessy, the arm wrestling mini game, and then we have the rounding up the chest with your ropes. There is one dual minigame that is motion, and that is a fish reaction minigame. There is one item minigame where it looks like you're gonna have to tilt your Joy-Con to put the ball into the specific place that you want it to be. And then there is one Jamboree friend minigame that is motion, and that is Rosalina's. So don't expect to see Rosalina online when it comes to seeing her for Jamboree friends. So all in all, for those that were wondering how many of these minigames we will be actually able to play in the main boards themselves, we will have 22 4-player minigames, 10 1v3 minigames, 9 2v2, 4 dual, 4 item, and 9 Jamboree friend minigames, which in total gets us to 58. We found this out a little bit after I had recorded this, so now back to the end of the video. Well, that is all of the minigames in Mario Party Jamboree, and the best descriptions that I feel like I could give the ones that we really haven't seen yet. The next video in 3 days from now, we will be talking about the allies and everything included in there, including the minigames again. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you all potentially then for that video.